In this instructional video, we'll go over those sections we skipped in Greek 1 that covered forms of the contract verbs. The present, middle, and passive indicative was a form that we studied in Mounts chapter 18. And here we'll go over the present, middle, passive indicative for contract verbs, which also have vowel contraction. Let's go over the verb agapao, which has the stem ending in alpha. And if we were to write an alpha all the way down the line, knowing that these are also the first person singular, second person singular, third person singular, first person plural, second person plural, third person plural forms, an alpha plus an omicron contracts to an omega. So the form for the present, middle, passive indicative would be agapomai. And for now, I'm going to skip the second person singular form. We'll go back to it. But alpha plus epsilon gives us alpha. And so the third person singular form would be agapatai. Alpha plus omicron contracts to an omega. Agapometha. Now notice I used an acute accent because here is where the vowel contraction takes place, but there's a rule for accents that circumflex accents can only fall on the last two syllables. And since the contraction falls here on the third syllable, it has to be an acute accent. Alpha plus epsilon is agapaste, where the alpha and epsilon contract to an alpha, and alpha plus omicron contracts to an omega. So to say they are being loved. Remember, if I were to translate these verbs passively, instead of in a middle translation, it would be I am being loved, you are being loved, he, she, it is being loved, we are being loved, you all are being loved, and here they are being loved. Agapontai. Let me clear the board so I can explain thoroughly the second person singular form for agapao. When you add the alpha to the epsilon plus the psi, the vowels contraction goes as follows, and you can see this in Mouse. When the alpha plus the epsilon becomes an alpha, this is following your big five little two rules, and so we have then these letters together. When the sigma drops, alpha, the little two rule, two like letters become one, and then this iota subscripts because here the alpha becomes long. So this is actually the final form when you contract the alpha from the stem, verbal stem, plus the connecting vowel, plus the primary middle passive suffix psi. When the sigma drops out and the vowels contract, you end up with this final suffix form. So let me write this out. Agapa iota subscript, circumflex, this circumflex again signaling that's where the vowel contraction takes place, and agapa iota subscript is you are being loved, if I were to translate the form passively. So let's fill in the rest of the paradigm, and let's say agapomai, agapa, agapatai, agapometha, agapaste, agapantai. Now let's clear the board and go over the forms for poeo. And if we have the epsilon here, we ask, well, what happens when the epsilon and the omicron combine? It contracts to u. So this would be poi umai. Again, the sigma drops, these vowels contract, you end up with an eta with iota subscript. The iota subscript is a strong long vowel, and it makes the contract vowel in the stem drop. And so the second person singular form is poi a. Epsilon plus epsilon is the diphthong a, epsilon iota. So this is poi a tai. And then epsilon plus omicron is u. So this would be poi u mitha. Epsilon plus epsilon is a again, the diphthong. So this is poi aesthe. And then epsilon plus omicron is the u diphthong. And we have poi untai. So these are the forms for the present, middle, passive, indicative, and we're going to translate this passively. This would be I am being made or done. You are being made or done. He, she, it is being made. We are being made. You all are being made. They are being made. And so let's say these forms together in Greek. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Poi umai, poi a, poi etai, poi umatha, poi aesthe, poi untai. Lastly, let's go over plerao, which means I am fulfilling, I am completing, and in the passive translation, I am being filled, I am being completed. So if we add the stem vowel omicron all the way down the paradigm, so that we see that the omicron and the connecting vowel for the primary middle passive suffixes are what's combining, we'll see that omicron plus omicron contracts to u, the u diphthong, and generally the omicron plus epsilon contract to also form the u diphthong. So the u diphthong is going to show up for all the forms except for the second person singular, because we have a special rule being applied here, so it's going to look different. So if I want to say I am being completed, I am being filled, the form would be plerumai. And I'm going to skip the second person singular for now, and we'll go back to it. The third person singular, he, she, it, is being filled or completed, is perutai. First person plural, plerumitha. Second person plural, plerusthe. And the third person plural, pleruntai. And what happens with the second person singular form is that when these vowels contract, we get the following form. Well, the sigma drops out, and the epsilon and alpha combine to eta with an iota subscript. And remember your little two rules, that an omicron plus an eta with an iota subscript contracts to an oi. This is one of your little two rules. So go back to your little two rules if you forgot. So the form here would be pleroi with a circumflex. And these are the forms. So let's say this, the forms for the present, middle passive indicative for plerao all together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Plerumai, pleroi, plerutai, plerumitha, plerusthe, pleruntai. And that's the present middle passive indicative forms.